What's up, everybody? Happy New Year. I'm Mr. J. This is W.A.D. MTG. It's the first day of the new year in 2025. So I wanted to just briefly go over my favorite cards of 2024 and what I'm looking forward to the most coming in 2025. So in 2024, the first set was a complete reprint set. It was Ravnica Remastered. Continuing with the pattern of the last couple of years, the first set being a January remastered set. I liked it a lot. I don't think it sold all that well, but I did like it a lot. It had a lot of banger reprints in it. So my favorite cards of Ravnica Remastered were obviously the Shocklands. Reprinting all the Shocklands was great. You got some alternate arts. It reduced the price of all the Shocklands, made them more accessible, easier to get, and cheaper. So I really appreciated that. Reprint of Cyclonic Rift was nice. It had alternate art. I like seeing Cryptghast, Protein Hulk, Blind Obedience, Karn the Great Creator, Utvar Hellkite, Deathrite Shaman, Thrift Fairy, that's the Fairy Time Raveler, Cloudstone Curio, and the list goes on and on with Ravnica Remastered. Like I said, I really liked how they curated that set. I liked all the reprints. There are a lot more bangers in Ravnica Remastered than just those, but those were my highlight cards of the set. The second set of the year in 2024 was Murders at Karloff Manor in the Clue Edition. Honorable mentions to Professor Plum, I guess. I forget what the name of the card was, but his version of the card was great. I really liked that. Was my favorite Clue card, was the Professor Plum card. But from the main set, I think the best card in the set was probably the Surveil Land Cycle. They're quite expensive, but they're very useful. Being able to fetch for them because they have the actual land types on them. They do come in tapped like the Scry lands, but much different from the Scry lands. Surveil is actually a way more useful mechanic than Scry. I still use the Scry lands in like some of my casual decks and stuff, especially if I'm trying to emphasize the Scry ability. It is helpful, but Surveil is much better, especially in like a Reanimator build or a Spell Slinger build or something where you're trying to throw cards in your graveyard, maybe Underworld Breach, etc., etc. So the Surveil lands were bangers, loved them. I liked Vein Ripper. I thought he was a great card. Powerful 6-drop vampire with a reoccurring ability that we're starting to get a total mass amount of cards that do that. So if you can play it like a critical mass, if you play all those cards, you can really build a distinct theme into the deck, and it really gives you a lot of aristocrat payoff. So Vein Ripper was a big one for me. Archdruid's Charm, I just think that card was really versatile. It can go in just like any green deck. It's going to be a staple moving forward in any EDH deck that's like either mono green or 2-color green. I would think twice about using it in 3-color. But for a mono green or a 2-color deck with green, Archdruid's Charm was an amazing card. I also wanted to give an honorable mentions in that set to the Krenko Baron of Tin Street crime novelist combos. There's a lot of combos with those two. I love goblins. Always love to play goblins. So if you got a goblin deck and those two cards aren't in there, you should probably rethink about putting them in there. There's a lot of combo lines with those two cards. Namely, my favorite's probably Animation Module. Alright, so the third set of 2024 was Fallout. So for Fallout, I really did like the set. I'm a big fan of the Fallout game franchise. But I didn't buy too much of it. But there were some I have to have cards in the set that I did go out and acquire. It wasn't a main set. It was just like an EDH deck set, kind of like last year with what do they call that? Off the top of my head, I can't think about it. I did buy some of that too, but it was like that. It just had collector decks and EDH decks, like starter decks. So of the Fallout set, the main cards for me were Radstorm, the Pip-Boy 3000, and the foil bobbleheads. So I've been acquiring, I've got all the bobbleheads, but I've been trying to acquire all the foil bobbleheads. I've got a few left I still got to get. I'm going to frame them and put them in my room, in my game room. And I just was a big fan of them. They're 3-mana mana rocks, so they're not particularly useful, but flavorfully, they're great, and they all have upside, and it's a win con. And being a fan of the Fallout franchise, I think it was a big flavor win to throw the bobbleheads in the set. So the bobbleheads were one of my favorite from the Fallout set. Warhammer, well, that's what I was looking for. The Warhammer stuff. So it was like the Warhammer set, where they just had the decks and the collector decks. So after Fallout last year was Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and that set, flavorfully, a lot of people didn't really like it. You know, magic cards and cowboy hats wasn't something everybody was super into, but the set itself was a banger. That set was awesome. The big scorecards, every one of them big scorecards was a huge hit. Every one of those cards was great. So, of my favorites for the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, I probably had a couple in each color, but I went with like my key cards that I've actually played and really enjoyed playing. Avid Interrupter in white was probably my favorite white card from the set. Insatiable Avarice in black. I liked a lot of the spree cards, not all of them. Like 3 Steps Ahead kind of gets an honorable mention. I forget the name of the whiteboard wipe at instant speed. That card's great. But I've played the hell out of Insatiable Avarice, so I like that card. Uncommon actually made my list. Magebane Lizard. That card's great. It's great in Group Slug. It's great in a deck where you're trying to like kill everybody that's doing Storm, or really anti-incentivize Storm. It's great as like a silver bullet for Underworld Breach lines and things of that nature where they keep casting or trying to storm off. Magebane Lizard is going to give them damage for each card on the storm, in the storm count. So I really like that card. I think it's a great card for anti-storm, anti-spellslinger decks where you're de-incentivizing them to storm off, and they're going to want to storm off anyway. That's what their deck's supposed to do. But if you're damaging them for doing that, it really makes them think twice, and it becomes one of those cards that they have to remove before they decide they want to go off, right? So I also liked Bristly Bill was a big card I liked in the set in green. He's in my Hydra deck. He's great in any +1/+1 counters deck. It's probably equivalent to the new card in Foundation's Jumpstart, but I haven't got to play that card, and I've only found a few actual card shops that have Jumpstart available, so I've only actually packed a few Jumpstart packs, and they're charging like $8 a pack, so I think it's a little ridiculous, and that's because the anime cards are in it or whatever, and they're expensive. Bristly Bill is expensive, but he was a little easier to acquire, and at the time of the Outlaws of Thunder Junction release, he was a lot cheaper. So Bristly Bill, banger. Vraska the Silencer, I really like that card. It's just a way to gain advantage off of your opponent's fields. You kill their cards, you get token copies of the cards, and they still have the effects, kind of like the spider from the Lord of the Rings, but she's only 3 mana. The Sword of Wealth and Power, the Sword of WAP, the Sword of Wet Ass Pussy. You gotta mention that card. It is by far the best card from the big score sheet. If I was to pick a favorite equipment for the whole year, it would either be that or the Pip-Boy 3000. The Sword of WAP is an amazing card. It's an amazing card. It does everything you want it to do. It's just great. The Esoteric Duplicator is probably my second favorite card from the big score, but every card in the big score is great. I like Molten Duplication as well, but Esoteric Duplicator, awesome. So that's my favorite cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And then we had Modern Horizons 3 in the summer that came out, and that was a super banger set too. Premium set. It was quite a bit more expensive. If you were to say, like, what was the best set of the year, you almost have to give it to MH3 by default, just because it was a premium set and it was more expensive, and the set was just full of awesome cards. Warped Modern, Warped Vintage, it warped or I guess not Vintage, but Legacy. It warped Legacy. There's cards in it that got banned in all formats. So MH3 was just a fantastic set. I really liked it. I kind of regret the price point, because some of the cards, you know, it got banned from MH3. But for my favorites, I've got Ulamog the Defiler, the Flipwalker set, the Flipwalker cycle. I like all of them. I think they're all great. Huge fan of the 5-color Eldrazi, Azalask the Swelling Scourge, and Ulalek the Fused Atrocity. Those cards were both awesome. Prior to those cards' releases, you had to use like Morophon or something if you wanted 5-color Eldrazi. So I really like both those cards. I think they're super OP, and the 5-color Eldrazi concepts are awesome. And finally, for MH3, the MDFCs were extremely good. They're all very good. You can put them in just about any deck, cycle them in. They're bolt lands, so you flip them over, they come in untapped, they bolt you for 3 damage if you need the land. So if you need the land, they're great. But you can, especially in EDH, you can take those cards and slot them in any deck, because they're like modal, right? They're very versatile. You can either use the effect on the front side and play the card, which is overcosted, but the ability to just play it as a land, and the land that comes in untapped is amazing. Now, they had tap MDFCs in MH3 as well, but I wasn't as big of a fan of those cards. I really liked the Bolt series lands, MDFCs, where you bolt yourself and they come in untapped. So next we had Assassin's Creed. I didn't really buy any of Assassin's Creed, but I did get a few singles from Assassin's Creed. It was one of them sets that, like in the year before, the Aftermath set, that did really bad. Like in sales wise, people didn't buy it. I mean, it's just a feel bad. You go out and you spend all this money, the same cost as a normal pack, and you open the pack and it's got like 5-6 cards or something in it. It's nothing but uncommons and rares, but still at the same time, it was just a big feels bad. And if you went out and got like a box or a fat pack bundle, and you crack those packs, I seen it all the way across the board in the community that people were getting 2 and 3 copies of the same card, and those were their rares. So how bad does it feel when you go drop $50-$60 or whatever it is for a bundle nowadays, and you open your 8 packs, you only got like 40-45 cards, and out of the 8 packs, 3 or 4 of them are the same. You got 3 duplicates of one and 2 duplicates of another one, and then 2 other cards. And it's like, okay, that was a big ripoff. That's why they didn't do well. That's why Assassin's Creed didn't do well. That's why Aftermath didn't do well. And coincidentally, that's why the Big Score and Outlaws of Thunder Junction did great, because they took the Mythics, they just upgraded them to Mythic and Outlaws. They took the cards that they were going to make a whole subset with, that they were going to do another Aftermath style, Assassin's Creed style set that didn't have a lot of cards in it and only had a few cards per pack, and they essentially just shoved it into Outlaws of Thunder Junction and made them like an extra, the Big Score was like a, what do they call it, like a list slot card basically. And that, I think going forward, the WotC should probably do that more often. If they have that idea and they're trying to cash grab, and they're trying to make like this premium style of Mythics and hard to acquire, more expensive cards that there's a more limited variety of, a more like limited amount of them printed. So there's a quantified or manufactured scarcity to these cards. If you just shove those cards into another good set as list slot, or like a Big Score, call them whatever you want, as like a list slot card, it's going to make more of those sets are going to become much more successful. So I was a big fan of that. But back to Assassin's Creed, there was only a couple of cards I actually really had to have for the set for a few decks, and those were my favorite cards of the set. So Crystal Skull, the Isu Spyglass, allows you to play artifacts and stuff, historics I think it is, off the top of your library, and it taps as a mana rock. So it's like a future sight that taps as a mana rock and allows you to play the cards that you're building your deck around, like historic cards, sagas, and artifacts and stuff off the top of your library. It's great in my artifact build. I really like that card. Desynchronization. If you're in a deck that isn't really going to play like Psych Rift, or you're only adding Psych Rift for like the overload cost, then Desynchronization is a better card. It's way cheaper. It's only like 4 mana or something for Desynchronization. So Desynchronization was one of my favorite, and I also really liked Restart Sequence. It's a free running card where you can reanimate, but if you hit with your commander or an assassin, or maybe it's what do they call it? Kind of like the crime. Maybe it's like assassin. I think it's just assassins or your commander, but it might be outlaws. I think it's just Assassin's Creed said I think it's just assassins or your commander. But Restart Sequence is a great card. If you hit with your commander, you can reanimate for 2. I also liked Abstergo Entertainment. That was a land from the set. It allows you to get a card back from your graveyard and then exile all graveyards. And other than that, it's just like a special land. So I do really like that one. I like the versatility. I like the ability to have an extra slot that's getting something back from your graveyard in your land slot. So you don't, have to do as much of that or as much planning for that in the rest of your deck. So that was it for me for the Assassin's Creed. After that was Bloomborough. Everybody, or most people, I should say most people's favorite set of the year was Bloomborough. It sold like crazy. It went off the shelves. It was, most people's favorite set. But I personally, in my style of Magic, I don't like cutesy critters and little animals and cute stuff. The flavor of it was nice. The storyline was good. Kind of like, I forget the cartoon that it was more like. I've talked about it in past videos and things with my friends and stuff. But I did like the flavor. I did like the story. But I'm not really into that in my style of Magic. So I didn't buy much of Bloomborough, but it did have some banger cards in it. I have to give this set some credit. The reason why it was most people's favorite is because it was just full of great cards. So for me in Bloomborough, I had the talent cycle. All the talents were pretty good. You can level them up as you go. They're more proficient in mana, and they all do something that's gonna push your game plan forward in those particular strategies, in those particular colors. So the talent cycle was great. I've got to give credit to Mockingbird. Mockingbird is a great clone. It is very efficient at 1 mana and X. So yeah, you can clone somebody's giant thing, and it's not very efficient. It's not as efficient as like a 2 mana clone, or like a 3 mana or 4 mana clone, because you got to spend X in it to cast their big thing. But if you're trying to like copy their Esper Sentinel or something like that, it's extremely efficient. You just play the 1 mana and you get a copy of it. Mockingbird's a great card. Valley Floodcaller, ain't no secret to anybody. It's making CEDH lists everywhere. Granting flash to all your non-creature stuff is amazing, and the ability to actually untap your otters and birds and stuff is relevant, because people have played the other otter, people are playing that, people are playing birds, like Birds of Paradise. Just being able to, especially in like Kinnan, being able to untap your Birds of Paradise, float the mana, untap it and tap it again for double, it gets you 4 mana. It's pretty relevant. So Valley Floodcaller is one of the MVP cards of the entire year. It's one of my favorite cards from Bloomborough. I've got Maha, it's Feather's Knight, is one of my favorite cards in Bloomborough. It's just really oppressive in black, and it does something that I like to do. If you land a Maha on the field, your opponents are going to be pissed, especially if they run creature strategies, especially as how easy it is to do 1 damage to a bunch of creatures, either all of them all at once or ping them off one at a time. It's very easy to do. You can drop an enchantment, and with Maha and the right enchantment or something on the field, boom, all the creatures are dead. They can't even play a creature. They play a creature, it dies. So it shuts off a lot of strategies. Maha, great card. Storm Splitter, it's making a lot of storm lists. It's making a lot of it's making a lot of decks for, you know, a lot of CEDH decks, a lot of regular casual EDH decks. It's making Storm lists and I believe in Pioneer and in Standard. I don't know if Storm Splitter has quite reached Modern, but it may hit Modern as well, because a combo is so easy that it's just a MVP card in almost all formats because of what you can do with it, how quickly you can do it. Patchwork Banner was a card that I really liked from Bloomburrow. Cheap card. It you know, it buffs up your tribal synergies, and it does it in a very efficient way. It's going to be a staple card moving forward for years to come in tribal synergy decks. So, where am I at? Three Tree City. It's a good land. A similar type of situation where it only really fits in like certain creature decks and stuff like that. But it's an expensive card for a reason. It's a very good card. Best land from the set, one of the best lands from the year. And my absolute favorite card from Bloomburrow was Hazel's Brewmaster. Hazel's Brewmaster is a combo card to help create infinite mana. It's in one of my CEDH decks. It works great. Fantastic card. It's by far my favorite card from Bloomburrow. So after Bloomburrow, we had Duskmourn House of Horrors, which was arguably my favorite set of the year. You know, a lot of people will say Bloomburrow was great, but I really like the flavor and the way it was built for Duskmourn. I like the Call to the Horror movies. All the call-out cards where you go through in your opening packs and you look at all these cards and say, oh, well, this is supposed to be this character. This is supposed to be this character. This is supposed to be this character from this movie. And this is from this movie, etc., etc. Just all the call-outs were great. Now, I would have liked them to pay for the IPs for these movies and these characters. But if you think about it, excuse me, if they were to pay for the IPs for all of those different movies, for all those different call-outs, like, you know, the Lord of Pain is supposed to be like the Saw guy, you know, they had like Beetlejuice references, they had like Silence of the Lambs, they had Gremlins, they had Chucky, and they did do a Chucky Secret Lair, which was sweet. You know, they did all these great things. I liked Pinhead, the Pinhead call out. That was one of my favorite cards for the set. Razorkin Needlehead. They had, you know, the Shining references and stuff in it. So I really like the references and the flavors in the actual set. I thought it was great. But I would have liked to get versions of those IPs, right? So if there was a Razorkin Needlehead card that had like Pinhead art from, you know, from what is it, Hellraiser? Yeah, from Hellraiser, right? If they'd had Pinhead on there, you know, I would have probably went and paid a premium for the actual Pinhead instead of Razorkin Needlehead. I got a friend who went out and got the Chucky Secret Lair. Now I know, like, what's the actual card that the Chucky's reprinted of? It's the Demon Doom Scourge or whatever, where you blink it and it like goads everything. Carter, Doom Scourge. So the version of Chucky in the Secret Lair wasn't actually from Duskmourn at all, but there was like a Chucky call out, and there was a bunch of other call outs. So the rest of my favorite cards from Duskmourn, which was my favorite set of the year, was Fear Missing Out, FOMO. It's a fantastic card. That's made its way to Modern, and now there's Modern Combo, now that they did the most recent unbannings with Splinter Twin and other decks. It's making its way all the way around. It's making its way in every format. FOMO is MVP of the year, MVP from Duskmourn, one of my favorite cards. I absolutely love the Enduring Cycle. Every card in the Enduring Cycle was fantastic. All 5 cards, all 5 colors, they were all great. Every time I build a deck now, it's like, how can I jam this Enduring card in the deck? Because they're just so good. They're so good. And when they hit the field, your opponents don't even want to remove them, because it's just a waste of a removal spell. It's just going to die and come back as an enchantment. So the Enduring Cycle is fantastic. Loved all the cards. They're making their ways into different formats and different decks as well. Big MVP of the year. One of my favorite cards from Duskmourn. And I got Abhorrent Oculus. The Oculus decks that are coming out in like Standard are ridiculous. I really like it in EDH. Abhorrent Oculus is one of my favorite cards from Duskmourn. Arguably, my favorite card from Duskmourn is probably Demonic Console, because I run a couple demon decks, so it's slotted very, very well into those decks. And you know, it's basically like redundancy for Demonic Tutor, because if you're running demon decks and you've got a demon, then you can just Demonic Tutor. Otherwise, you can tutor for a demon. So, great card. Really like it. The Verge Cycle was great. Their lands, they come in untapped, and they tap for 1 mana unless you have a basic or a card that has the land types that it's asking for. Then it'll tap for one or the other, and they come in untapped. So I think those are like really, really underrated lands for the year. They're still fairly cheap, and if you like them, I would pick up a few while you can. I've picked up several of each one that I really like, and I probably will pick up more in decks to come that I'm building right now and in the future, because they're underrated, man. They're cheap. They come in untapped. I think they're fantastic. They always come in untapped too. They don't have to meet a condition to come in untapped. They have to meet a condition to tap for the other mana. So that's why I think they're great. I have a lot of other cards in the deck or in the set in Duskmourn that I really liked. Like Kona Rescue BC was great. Tyvar the Pummeler was great. Marvin Murderous Mimic is fantastic. The ability to clone all the other creatures and get all their abilities is stupid. So he's a real big combo piece in a lot of decks. He's gaining in popularity. Huge card. They also had cards like Screaming Nemesis. I gotta shout out that card. The Overlords were all fantastic. They're all a little overcosted, but if you can, I forget what the keyword was, where you like cheat them out. It's kind of like vanish. Is it vanishing? Is it vanishing? It's kind of like that old other mechanic that the Time Lords did in the Doctor Who stuff. I don't barely ever use it, but it's like that mechanic where you pay it for its like vanishing cost or whatever it is, and you put time counters on it. You remove time counters, it comes out for free. So the Overlords were pretty good, especially in 60 card formats. They're doing great in Standard. They're kind of like Titans. So if you're building a deck that abuses ETBs and things of that nature to blink them or whatever, they're great. You give them haste, they're even better. You can cheat them out and just go about your regular play patterns. They're even better. So I like the Overlords. I really like Screaming Nemesis. Screaming Nemesis was arguably my MVP in the set until they banned the One Ring in Modern. Because you just play a play set of Screaming Nemesis, and then you can play Modern Burn, and you don't have to worry about the One Ring. And in fact, if they play the One Ring, it's only hurting them. They're getting card advantage, but they're getting hurt more. They're not protected, and it really, they kind of like time walk themselves, because they spent 4 mana to draw a card, 1 card, because you're just Screaming Nemesis, can't prevent the damage, can't gain life. You know, when you're playing other cards where they can't prevent damage, doubling damage, nailing them, they're dead by turn 4, turn 5 anyway, if not sooner. So it was my MVP until they banned the One Ring, and it's a still great card, but it's not going to be as prevalent in Modern. It won't be as prevalent in a lot of other builds. I still really like it in EDH. My favorite rooms from the set, I had 2 favorite rooms. I liked all the rooms. I like the room mechanics. They're really good in certain decks. And in other decks, they're even better. Like if you're playing ninjas and you're cheating off the top of the deck and looking for the CMC, and you can combine the CMC for pain effects like that, then they're great. And the ability to pay one for the cheap cost, then play the other later, or play whichever one you want and then play the other later, I think they're fantastic cards, and you'll see quite a bit of them in the future. My 2 favorite rooms were Unholy Annex Ritual Chamber, which helped win a world championship, the Duskmourn World Championship on Holy Annex. And I like demon decks, so it fits really good in those decks. It's like a Phyrexian Arena that also ends up making you a demon body, a flying demon, and then also drains and gains rather than taking life away from you because you're already running demons. So that card, awesome card. My second favorite room, what was the name of that card? It was Walk-in Closet, Forgotten Cellar. So it's the card that's got the Crucible Worlds effect. So for 3 mana, you can play lands from your graveyard. And then the Forgotten Cellar has like the Yawgmoth's Will ability, where you can play cards from your graveyard for that turn. And then I think you exile them, just like Yawgmoth's Mill. So it's not like it's not as good as Underworld Breach, but you're playing it in green. So you're not really playing it to storm off. You're playing it to play your lands from the graveyard, and then to recur your key pieces that have been removed that are sitting in your graveyard. So those were my two favorite rooms for Duskmourn. And coincidentally, it was supposed to be the last set of the year, but it wasn't. Then they came out with one more banger. Foundations, 5-year standard legal, tons of good cards for a bunch of formats. I posted them in my YouTube already in the community group. Some of my 5 favorite Foundations cards. That sneaky set that came in after Duskmourn, nobody knew it was even coming. It still had banger cards in it. I've got Coma World Eater as one of my favorite cards. The Sire of Seven Death, which is like arguably one of the strongest cards out of the set. Arguably one of the strongest Eldrazi ever. For 7 mana, you can play it in the colorless Eldrazi theme, and play it in the Cascade deck. Play it triggers the Cascade. You can play it in the Ululek deck and double it up and get, because it's non-legendary, get a second copy of it for 9 mana. You got 2 7/7s with 7 keywords. Absolutely ridiculous. Sire 7 Deaths, fantastic. I don't know how great it is in standard, but if you can cheat it out, or you can reanimate it because it's not legendary. It doesn't have the old Eldrazi Titan text where you shuffle your graveyard in, so you can sneak it to your graveyard. Now, arguably, it might be good in Modern, because Faithless Looting came back. So you can just Faithless Looting, draw a couple cards, pitch it, reanimate it for cheap, and take over the game that way. Very easy. Sire 7 Deaths, amazing card. Blasphemous Edict hit my list for Foundations. It's like Blasphemous Act. It's not as good as Blasphemous Act, but it does reduce its cost. So it's cheap to play. It's very efficient. Everybody sacrifices 13 creatures. And then if you've got like sacrifice synergies or like the Eldrazi or Tergrid that bring them back on your field, then you can get all those to trigger at once. Trigger the Tergrid while it's being sacrificed itself to then bring back everybody's stuff. So Blasphemous Edict's a fantastic card. It's very efficient. You're going to see a lot of it. I only got 1 copy of it, but other people were buying into that set huge, and that was one of the big hitters of the set and one of my favorite cards of the set. Only got a couple more left from Foundations, and I'm going to be out of here and get into the one I'm looking forward to. So we got Rite of the Dragoncaller, which is like a Storm payoff or a Spellslinger payoff, kind of like Sharknado. You can sit there and just play every spell you play, really low cost, really efficient cards, cantrips, etc., etc. Every card you play is going to get you a 5/5 Flying Dragon. So, awesome, right? I mean, it's a little overcosted, but as it's an enchantment, it's a little harder to sneak out as well. But it's a great payoff for those types of decks. You're probably going to see a lot of it in EDH. You probably won't see as much of it in Constructed, but I'm pretty sure there is a variation that people have played in Arena that runs Dragoncaller, where it's just like, it's just like a Storm kind of deck where you're just playing low cost cards, and it's control-y deck. So every time you play a counter spell, you counter their move, you get a 5/5 dragon, you attack with it on your turn. Fantastic. And my other favorite card, arguably the best card from Foundations, it's still cheap. I ended up getting like the most expensive version of it, or one of the most expensive versions of it, the Mana Foil textured version. Niv Mizzet Visionary. Oh man, just awesome. I think he's the best Niv Mizzet so far. Now, some people might say Payrune's better because he infinite combos or whatever, but so does Visionary. Niv Mizzet Visionary infinite combos as well, and he infinite combos with the other Niv Mizzets who infinite combo with themselves. So if you like Niv Mizzet, if you like red-blue decks, if you like Izzet decks, and you're that style of mage and magic, you're gonna love Niv Mizzet Visionary. You do damage to the table, with cards like Bolt Wave, which also came from Foundations. Everybody takes 3 damage for 1 mana. You draw 9. I mean, it's spectacular. It's just stupid. So Niv Mizzet Visionary is probably my favorite card from Foundations, and those are my favorite cards in the year review for 2024 for each set that came out in 2024. And now that I passed that, we'll get into the one I'm looking forward to in 2025. Now, there are a few things I don't particularly like about the 2025 lineup that they debuted in Vegas for MagicCon Vegas, but I'm still very, very excited. I'm going to probably drop more money in 2025 than I did in the last couple years in sets, just making sure. Arguably, I'm going to drop a lot more. But we'll see once the spoilers start coming out and we see what's in each set. I'll go from there. The first one's going to be another remastered set, like continuing with the pattern. It's Innistrad remastered. I don't think I'm going to buy any of that. I might buy a couple collector's packs, just trying to pull, what's it called? Edgar Markov. So he's going to be ridiculously hard to pull. And they got this new thing where they got like these featured cards, like this one standout card or whatever, that's going to be great in each set. And for Innistrad Remastered, it's Edgar Markov. He's going to be extremely difficult to pull, but the serialized version of it's probably going to be worth 10 grand out of the box. So I probably will buy a couple of collector's packs just to see what I get. And that's going to be it for me, I think, for Innistrad Remastered, because I already have a lot of Innistrad stuff. And I like vampires and everything. I like the werewolves and everything. But I've already got most of the stuff from Innistrad that I really want. So in a remastered set, they're going to have to do something like they did in Ravnica Remastered to really sell me on Innistrad Remastered. I haven't really seen a lot of the spoilers or anything, just a few of the stuff that's leaked in the community about what's coming out in the Innistrad Remastered set. So far, I'm kind of standoffish on it. But I do like the idea of it. I do like the remastered sets. They're full grade reprints. I'm just not particularly excited. The Ether Drift set, I'm not particularly excited about that one either. But I do like the idea of Death Race and Magic. So I probably will buy quite a bit of that set. It's going to be good. It's going to be the first standard set of the year. I'm just not particularly excited for it. The Dragons of Tarkir return, though. I'm stupid excited about that one. I will spend a lot of money on that one. I love dragons. I love Tarkir. One of my favorite sets of all time. Hopefully they bring back fetch lands, and if that's the case, they're gonna double the amount of money that I throw at Tarkir. Just if fetch lands are in there, I'm doubling the amount of money. I'm already gonna get a box and probably a collector box. But if the fetch lands are in there, I'll probably get two play booster boxes and a collector box, and probably buy singles after that. So Tarkir, I'm really excited for it. Big fan of dragons, big fan of Tarkir. The Edge of Eternity set, I'm also excited for. I think if you're into that flavor in Magic, you might want to go back and look at the Shocklands that were reprinted in the newer Unfinity set. It's the newest unset, where they changed the symbol at the bottom with the little acorns and stuff. So it's convoluted and confusing on which cards are legal and which cards aren't. But it also had some great cards in it, some cards that are seeing CDH play, etc., etc. But those cards demand a premium. So if you can get your hands on those arts of the world arts and the space arts of those Shocklands, if you're excited for the Edge of Eternity set, I think you should go back and get some, because when the Edge of Eternity is getting ready to come out, those cards are going to go up. They're going to go up quite a bit, and were kind of expensive, but I think they dropped a bit. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Final Fantasy, huge fan of Final Fantasy. I'm going to probably drop $500-600 on Final Fantasy, easy. But that doesn't even really compare to what I'm most excited about in 2025 in Magic, and that is Spider-Man. Dude, I'm gonna drop like $2,000 on Spider-Man alone. I want a play set of the old set. I want, I'm probably gonna buy a couple collector boxes, a couple play boxes, all the commander decks. I'm gonna buy all that shit. Spider-Man, Marvel going forward, I'm looking at dropping $1,500, $2,000 per set for every Marvel set going forward. And I'm also butthurt about the Marvel Secret Lair stuff still. I didn't get none of it. I'm not a fan of buying into the secondary market for that kind of stuff, for the scalpers, or supporting what they're doing. I'm not going to pay 3-4 times the value of the cards to get the cards. I'm just not going to do it. But what I will do is drop a couple grand on Spider-Man, and that's what I'm most excited about in 2025 in Magic is Spider-Man, but also the unannounced Universes Beyond. Because of the Marvel Secret Lair, I think there's a better than not chance that unannounced Universes Beyond, they're not announcing it because they don't want people to skip it for Spider-Man. They don't want people to skip Spider-Man for that, I mean. So I think it's either going to be the X-Men or the Avengers. That's what I think the unannounced Universes Beyond is going to be, X-Men or the Avengers. And if it's X-Men, I pity my wallet because I'm going to spend just a ridiculous amount of money on that set if it's X-Men. If it's Avengers, I'll probably go a little less because I'm not as big of a fan of the Avengers as I am of the X-Men. X-Men is my absolute favorite Marvel IP. Spider-Man is arguably my second favorite Marvel IP. So, you know, I pity my wallet. That's what I look forward to the most in 2025. I'm going to spend a ridiculous amount of money in 2025. And call me Tyrone Biggums, because you got any more of that Magic? You got any more of that? I'm going to buy a shitload of Magic in 2025. So thanks for watching again, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you got anything to add, what are you most excited about? What do you like in 2024? And that's it for me. I'm Mr. J. This is W.A.D. MTG, and I'm out. Peace.